Holla ballers, what's going on? And today, my friends, I'm not only feeling good, but we are looking at the Affliction Warlock, the considered highest DPS Warlock spec in the game. Given certain conditions, this bad boy is going to pull you to the roof. Now, first of all, let me preface this by saying that the playstyle of the Affliction Warlock in terms of your rotation, you can't tell, but I'm doing quotation marks. The rotation of the priority list is exactly the same as it was when Mr. Pandaria launched. So if you're new to the class and you're looking for some basics, you're looking at how to gem, reforge, that kind of swag, go ahead and check the original video I did, because that still stands in how to apply your dots and monitor them and rotate them and generally get in good shape. What I am going to talk about today, though, is how we're going to push this bad boy to the next level. It's not an advanced guide. I'm not going to say that. It's not an advanced guide. It's not that in-depth. But I am going to discuss how this class works in relation to its brothers, the Demonology and the Destruction, and some issues you will run into. There are some problems that you will run into and how to defeat them, because this spec works. That's what I'm going to tell you. The spec works. It's not a retard spec. In before that. But what it is a very complicated but delicate spec. Which sounds a little bit fairy cakes, I know, but it is. It's a complicated but delicate spec at the same time. It needs a little bit of a gentle touch in order to make it work. What a lot of people will find, and I found this getting back into the Affliction Warlock, is I was dotting all the things. It's the dot spec, right? We're diseasing stuff, we're putting banes and agonies, and we're just draining the life out of things. What I found is a lot of frustration. I'm dotting all the things and I'm just not seeing the numbers I expect. I'm doing what I know is right. I played Affliction to an extremely high level in Method. I was there. I was playing Affliction. And I did really well with it. I did okay. And then I applied that to what I felt with the Mr. Pandaria Warlock. And I just wasn't getting those numbers. I wasn't seeing it. And it was weird, very, very frustrating. I mean, frustrating to me to be playing it. I'm like, this is not right. This is not what I expect. So what were the problems I ran into and how can you deal with them? First of all, it feels bursty, right? That was the big change we got in Mr. Pandaria, is the ability for Affliction to burst. And it can burst. We can insta-dot. We can get haunts on. We could do that during procs. At the beginning of a fight, we can have all our dots on. We can have Doom Guards. And we can pull off outrageous numbers at the very beginning of a fight. So it actually felt bursty. Something Affliction has never had in its entire life. The ability to burst. It was the build-up spec. Get the dots rolling. Set ourselves up for the bomb. Wait for those big nightfalls. So I started playing it as I'd just come away from playing Demonology and Destruction, and I felt a little bit bursty. And therefore I was throwing dots around, I'm soul swapping all over the place. I'm actually pressing on a whole multitude of keys and making sure I'm doing this and this and this. That is just not how Affliction works. And I had to bring it back to its roots. And a lot of you might be running into the same thing, is you've got dots everywhere. You've got all this stuff going on. Where are my numbers? Where's the numbers to counteract that? Where's the numbers to represent the effort I'm putting into this spec? It doesn't work that way. Affliction still at its very core is that build-up spec. Things need to be rolling, and then you need to allow that damage to come at a later date. You need to allow it time. You need to be patient with it and let it draw into itself and let these numbers and spells do their work. Then you start seeing the reflections in the damage meter of what you're actually doing. A good example of this is AoE. A lot of temptation goes around, and I had this temptation to, oh my god, I've got 4 mobs, boom, soul swap them bastards down. And then I wasn't seeing great numbers coming from that, which is kind of weird. And it felt like I was doing something wrong. The only thing I was doing wrong was trying to kill things instantly with a spec that takes time to kill things. It's not how it works. This isn't Destruction. Just soul swapping dots on isn't going to yield me an instant 1 million crit. That's just not how it works. So I drew it back. I went back to the core mechanics of this spec. And what I did is I decided, hey, you know what? If there's more than 3 mobs, I actually have a chance here just to start doing some multi-dotting and a little bit of Seed of Corruption. In fact, I made a rule to myself that any more than 3 mobs, I wasn't really going to be doing a lot of multi-dotting. Instant transition into what the DPS should look like. I'm talking instantaneously, my numbers went through the roof. By a good 50-60k DPS, I saw a huge, phenomenal difference in how to play. If there was 3 mobs, it allowed me to not only dot them, but then manage those dots. And this is the trick. You need to manage your dots, and this is where the advanced stuff comes from. Managing your dots is everything for Affliction. You manage them, you keep them rolling, you take your time, you're patient with them, and you allow them to do what they want to do. They want to sit on that mob and they want to continuously damage it, and you need to respect that. I mean, you really need to respect the fact that these dots don't want to go ahead and start blowing things up. What they want to do is sit around and they want to stay there for a long time. They want to chill. They want to do what they're going to do. They're on the mob. They're ready to go, and managing them is far greater than trying to just put more of them out there. Far more of them out there. It's such a temptation to just be constantly spamming soul swap and throwing dots everywhere and not really managing what the other dots are doing. Your older dots are just thinking to themselves, hey, what about me? You're not allowing me to do what I want to do. You're letting me fall off. You're letting me do this. Especially Agony is such a beautiful example. Agony needs to stack up to 10. If you're not managing Agony properly, what you're always doing is waiting for a good Agony. And all your other Agonies that you've got thrown around there are actually not reaching their potential at all. They're just chilling. They might be running out. If you're trying to manage dots on 5 or 6 mobs, wow, you're going to run into some problems, and you can actually find that is just a massive DPS loss, is not managing these dots correctly. Trying to multi-dot successfully as Affliction, especially via soul swap, is no easy process. It's not easy, and if you are not extremely good at it, what you're going to find is you'll very quickly suffer DPS losses compared to just spamming seed or simply just going for more nuke specs. I really recommend you stick to 3 and allow them to manage. But further than that, managing your dots is now super important. Because of the way dots work, and we discussed this in the older video, these dots update depending on what buffs you've got, but you need to reapply them. There are now add-ons, and I'm going to cover the add-on, one of them, in a different video called Aff Dots, but you can go and check it out if you want to, which actually tells you what your potential power of your dots are. This is what your dots will do if you apply them now. Similar to an Ignite or a Combustion Helper for a Fire Mage, it says, hey, you know what? You really need to consider reapplying your dots now, because these dots that you've got on are nowhere near as powerful as the dots you could apply if you did it now. Managing those dots, especially now as we look at the legendary Meta Gem, throwing everything out of whack and allowing Affliction to push extremely high if one is able to manage his dots correctly. Affliction suffers a little bit if you are not good at this. If you are just keeping your dots up as they expire, you're actually nowhere near your potential DPS, and that's the important part. You are just not there. Managing your dots correctly and tracking your buffs is far more important. It's no longer a case of, oh, my dots are expiring, I should reapply them. That's almost the wrong way to play, which is very counterintuitive to what we've seen of Affliction in the past. Now we're saying to ourselves, how powerful is my character right now? Can I translate that into the dot damage? And then this spec starts to shine very brightly. Very brightly. So a couple of ways of doing that, okay? Tell me when is one way of doing this, is putting your trinkets and procs on some sort of notification so you can actually get a visual representation of how powerful your character is right now, and should you consider redotting. Another one is an add-on that will simply tell you if your dots are at a certain figure, and therefore practice and tracking how high that number can go will give you a good indication as well. Overall though, no longer playing along the basis of, I just need to make sure I've got my dots on. That's just not how this spec works right now. Managing soul shards and managing how powerful your dots are is the key, the absolute key to greatness. But this spec will carry you a long way if you start doing that. And not only that, once you start burying yourself into this, once you start understanding how these spells are affecting your other spells, your other classes will rise significantly, because it's a lot more work. I'm going to tell you right now, Affliction is a lot more micromanaging than, say, Destruction, which is a lot about, I'm quite powerful right now, I can dump some Chaos Bolts. A nice simple thought process going on there. Procs and trinkets and all that kind of stuff are updating all the time throughout a fight, which means you are always constantly on your toes to manage what are your dots doing right now. Very important to remember is, hey, do I have super powerful dots on right now? Should I be replacing these? I see a lot of people doing things like, I've just done my pull and I definitely have super powerful dots on right now. but they're about to expire, or one of them, like Unstable Affliction, is about to run out. Hey, you know what? I'm going to soul swap my dots back on, and you're actually replacing a super powerful Agony and a super powerful Corruption way before those spells expire, and suddenly you've just got really shitty dots on because all your procs wore off. It's a nice simple example there of how this spec works. So much thought, so much care needed, but if you do that, my god, does this spec shine, and you're going to have a ton of fun. I know that's not as in-depth as I want to go. I want to revisit this in 5.3. I'm expecting a couple of changes, but still, one of the greatest specs that actually allows you to think about what you're doing. Really allows you to consider how the game mechanics work. How do trinkets affect you? How do these things really work together, and how can I make them shine? If you're struggling with your Affliction Warlock and you're really seeing like low numbers, although you've dotted everything and you can't understand why, more than likely you're just throwing out and you're spending a ton of global cooldowns throwing out really weak, really pathetic dots, and perhaps allowing things like Agony to fall off, and every time you're reapplying Agony, my god, you're just waiting for it to build up to its 10 stack when it's actually doing good damage, and then it falls off very soon. Important stuff to consider there, guys, so take your time with it. I recommend this spec. It's good fun, but it's also a little bit care needed. Alright, guys, you take it easy, and I'll see you later.